All right, let's just dive right into one of Shakespeare's most complex and honestly most fascinating characters, Prince Hal. He's a huge puzzle, one that we've been trying to solve for centuries. How does this guy, this rebellious rogue who's always drinking in taverns with criminals, suddenly flip a switch and become the legendary King Henry V? Is it some kind of miracle, or is there something way more calculated going on beneath the surface?
You really can't get a handle on Hal unless you understand the two completely different worlds he lives in. On one side, you've got the tavern. It's all chaos, rebellion, life, vice. It's messy and it's real. And on the other side, the court. That's all about duty, legacy, and the heavy, cold reality of power. Hal is constantly moving between these two places, and it feels like they're in a tug of war for his very soul.
And that, right there, is the million-dollar question we're tackling today. Is he the prince of the bar stool or the prince of the throne? Is one of them just an act, or maybe they both are? Which one of these is the real Prince Hal? That's the enigma we're going to try and unravel.
So here's our game plan. We've set up the puzzle. Now we're going to look at what we're calling the masks of humanity. Theories that say he's driven by feelings we can all relate to. Then we'll flip it and look at the masks of power, which paint him as a stone-cold strategist. And at the end, we'll see if we can find the actual man behind all these different faces. Okay, so let's start by looking at Hal as a person, not a political player. What if his journey isn't about strategy, but about something deeply human? Is he just a rebel? Is he motivated by pure emotion? Or is this whole story actually a tragedy? The most traditional view, and maybe the most hopeful one, is Hal as the prodigal son. The idea here is that this isn't some grand scheme. It's a classic redemption story. He's just a young man who's genuinely lost his way. And what we're watching is his sincere journey back to the right path, choosing to be a good man over an easy life.
According to this theory, his time in the tavern isn't just him goofing off. It's a real rebellion against the insane, suffocating pressure of being a prince. He's crushed by his father's legacy. So his big transformation isn't an act. It's a genuine moment of waking up to his responsibilities. It's a comforting story, right? The flawed guy who ultimately makes the right choice.
But here's a thought. What if we're looking at this rebellion all wrong? What if it's not about politics and the crown at all? What if, at its core, this is a story about a son and his father? This leads us to the paternal displacement theory. The idea is that Hal is struck between two very different father figures, and frankly, both of them kind of fail him. You've got his real dad, the king, who's cold, distant, and all about business. No warmth there. So Hal goes looking for it somewhere else and finds Falstaff. He's chaotic, sure, but he's also a source of that emotional warmth Hal craves. Here's the kicker, though. Neither of them is enough. Falstaff is ultimately a parasite, and the king is just emotionally unavailable. And what's the result? Hal is left totally and fundamentally isolated. He doesn't belong in either world. From this angle, him becoming king isn't a victory lap. It's a tragic choice to accept a life of loneliness.
Now, if you thought that was sad, get ready for maybe the most tragic take of all, Hal as the subversive. This theory says he's not faking it. He genuinely loves the tavern life. He's happy there. So his reformation isn't a good thing. It's a kind of social suicide. He has to kill the person he truly is to become the king the world needs him to be.
And this just lays it out so clearly. Look at the two columns. His preference is genuine joy, pranks, real friendship. His duty? Stiff, deadly court politics. It's a machine. So when he chooses duty, it's not an inspiring moment. It's a tragedy. It's him giving up his soul and mournfully submitting to the state. Okay, we're making a hard turn now. We've talked about Hal's heart, now let's talk about his head. Let's explore the masks of power. Let's take emotion out of it and ask a much colder question. What if this whole thing was a brilliant plan from day one? Is he a strategist, a predator, or something else entirely?
So, first up in this category is the idea of Hal as a cultural anthropologist. His time in the tavern isn't about fun or rebellion, it's fieldwork. Think of him like an undercover researcher, clinically studying his future subjects. He's learning their language, their habits, their psychology, all so he can be a more effective ruler. It's incredibly smart, but also incredibly detached.
And this table really sharpens the point. The anthropologist's goal is, arguably, a noble one: good governance. His method is to learn. But the Machiavellian Hal, his motivation is just raw power, political capital. And his method isn't to learn what's true, but to manufacture a story. The goal is straight-up manipulation. Which brings us to the coldest, most chilling interpretation there is, Hal the Machiavellian. In this view, he's not even a man anymore. He's a predator. Every single thing he does, every friendship he makes, it's all just one move in an incredibly long and patient game for absolute power.
I mean, just look at this playbook. It is both brilliant and absolutely terrifying. Step 1, intentionally make everyone think you're a disaster. Why? Because people love a comeback story more than they love a guy who is always perfect. Step 2, your friends are just props in your personal PR campaign. Step 3, stage your dramatic transformation for maximum political impact. And Step 4, the coldest of all. Once your allies have served their purpose, you throw them away. Ruthless.
So we've seen Hal as a human and Hal as a predator. But what if there's no person there at all? What if he's something much more abstract? What if he's simply a symbol?
This is the theory of Hal as the national icon. The idea here is that he has no real fixed personality. He's a blank slate, a mirror. He becomes whatever the nation needs him to be at any given moment. When he's with thieves, he's the best thief. With soldiers, he's the ultimate soldier. He's a chameleon. And that's why he can unite a fractured country. Because everybody can see a version of themselves in him. The man is gone and only the icon remains. So after all of that, after looking at him as a son, a rebel, a strategist, a symbol, we have to come back to our original question. With all these different masks, who is the man behind them?
Let's just run them back real quick. We've got 6 completely different Hamlets. The redeemed prodigal son, the lonely victim of bad fathering, the tragic subversive who sacrifices himself, or the cold cultural anthropologist, the ruthless Machiavellian, or the empty national icon.
But you know what? Maybe the answer isn't to pick one. Maybe the absolute genius of this character, the reason we're still obsessed with him 400 years later, is that he can be all of these things. His real power isn't in who he is, it's in the fact that he could be anyone. His power lies in that ambiguity.
And so I'll leave you with this final thought. If Hal really is this perfect political mirror, reflecting what we want or expect to see in our leaders, which version did you find yourself drawn to? Did you hope he was the good kid who came home, or did you admire the ruthless efficiency of the Machiavellian? What does your favorite mask of Prince Hal say about you?